One of the most common things in modern food and cooking culture is seed oils. Seed oils are a plant-based fat product that are receiving a lot of attention in main headlines, and no one really is understanding this issue for what it is at face value. We see this very frequent demonization where you see people going in front of stores and literally offering people money to not go into them because they have seed oils, and it's honestly kind of funny. But the issue is not this black and white. Are we hurting restaurants? Are we hurting people? Are we somewhere in the middle where it actually might be okay? That question and several others you have are going to be answered in this video very, very quickly. But if you want to understand this in a meaningful way, you have to understand what the three types of fats are so you really know what you're dealing with in this cooking oil. All the fats we eat within oils, like butter, ghee, seed oils, olive oil, avocado oil, and etc., are either going to be a saturated fat, mono-unsaturated fat, or a polyunsaturated fat, and here's how they differ. Each one will have a glycerol backbone and then 3 fatty acid tails. What's important about saturated fatty acid tails is that every single one of them will be straight like this. Monounsaturated fatty acids will have a tail with 1 kink like that. And as you'd assume with poly, they'll have more than 1 kink in their tail, and this really changes their chemical properties and what they're kind of turned into once they enter your body. A very famous polyunsaturated fatty acid is going to be linoleic acid. This is something that many people are going to say is poisonous to you, and it is somewhat right, and we're going to get into that in a minute here. But we have to understand it is a compound your body needs to a certain degree, and it cannot create it on its own. So some polyunsaturated fatty acids that make this linoleic acid are very, very important. And linoleic acid is going to be something called an omega-6 fatty acid, and this is where we're going to get into that poisonous detail. In our bodies, we have a balance between omega-3s and an omega-6 ratio. There's a very big golden balance, usually between 3 and 6 omega-6s to every 1 omega-3. And this balance is very, very important for your health. And in the foodscape we see today, this is actually transformed into something more like 1 to 24. What we can infer is that we are eating way too many of these linoleic acids that we're going to find in these seed oils than we are eating these super healthy omega-3 fatty acids. And this is where the problem starts and has very good validity. And we have to just really turn to think, where are we getting these omega-6 fatty acids from if we're eating them in such a big abundance? Well, we are going to find them where we have these seed oils, and these seed oils are found in many products that we're going to find in people's everyday lives. This can be stuff like fast food, restaurant food, and of course, the super delicious, highly palatable junk food like Doritos, Oreos, etc. And a lot of people eat a whole lot of these things, and you have only some control of how many seed oils restaurants use, fast food places use, and junk foods use. The nutrition labels are a great guide, but no one's really tracking it, and it's hard to really tell how many omega-6s you're really getting. And remember, enough is very, very healthy for your body and absolutely important, but too much, like we're seeing overall in the general population, is very, very bad and poses many health concerns like these ones. But as I said before, they're still healthy enough to be needed by your body. So is the problem the seed oil or where we're finding it? This is something that's really interesting that we're not hearing about in enough of these videos that people are making about seed oils. They like to pose it as this enemy to give you something to fight against and making you easier to sell to or easier to sell you on a narrative that isn't completely true, and starts to create a little bit of a misinformation loop and almost starts making this idea a little political, where we can start seeing this right versus left thing, which should stay the fuck out of the health industry, in my opinion. But a big question many of you are going to have after seeing that is, why do restaurants, fast food places, home cooks, bakers, and all those people decide to use seed oils if they know that people are eating too much of them? One, the general population is not educated enough, which is okay. But 2, they are a hell of a lot cheaper. And this is where we're going to start drawing the comparison of seed oils to kind of olive oils, avocado oils, and saturated fats. What you can see in seed oils is they are by far the cheapest, and that's where they win. The restaurant industry is in a really tough time right now, and that's why a lot of restaurants like to use this to cook. And places like McDonald's and other fast food places are just going to want to use this because it's so cheap, so scalable, and it also has a neutral taste. What's really important about a neutral taste is in baking, if you use olive oil, you're gonna fucking taste it, and it's not gonna be good 99% of the time unless your intention is to extract the olive oil flavor. And of course, this also rubs off when you're cooking, so it's cheaper and it has a neutral taste. Another thing is the American Heart Association and other people have released things on how these polyunsaturated fats can be more healthy for you and be a very big balancing act in your health, but they really don't look into the claims all too much. Because if you eat too many saturated fats, switching them to polyunsaturated fats will probably make them healthier because of lowering your LDL level, but that's a whole thing for another time because that may or may not even have to do with your saturated fat intake, as it is a complex health issue. But as we can see, a lot of people take these complex issues and just want to make it an easy solution or an easy scapegoat by just blaming it on seed oils, hence creating this big, powerful narrative we're seeing that is likely misinforming a lot of people just like yourself. And I want to draw more attention to this is you have the people studying claims being more against the saturated fats. You have the money going against the avocado oil and more the home cooking restaurant space. But something you also have is a lack of knowledge or a lack of perception. For many people, it is just easier to blame the seed oils and get the fuck out, and that's going to be a benefit I'm going to talk about here in a couple seconds. However, the one thing I want you to remember is that the general population probably doesn't care about nutrition as much as you do, so the argument of antioxidants, vitamins like vitamin E, and stuff found in animal fats is just not going to be a great selling point when there's people in the other ear telling them saturated fats are going to kill you. Olive oil and avocado oil are probably going to be an easier sell in the general population anyway. So now that we understand that for restaurants, profitability is really important and they really want to use seed oils to do that. And as far as we go with baking and higher end restaurants, you might not want those flavors of the olive oil, so you want to use neutral oil, and that is okay. And I'm going to get into that later in this video. What I said you're going to understand is why it's an issue that we're just demonizing seed oils. The problem with this is that we're making one thing to blame for a large health issue. There's so many things we could blame on why people are fatter, maybe dying earlier because of those conditions, and it's not because they ate too many seed oils, it's because they ate too much bad shit and had a lot of bad habits and didn't move. We can see that bad diet, bad exercise, and bad sleep is going to fuck your body up more than you can imagine. So seed oils obviously aren't at the forefront, but remember that part of the video where I showed you they're in restaurant food, cooking food, fast food, junk food? Now we pose a different thing. We see a lot of bad diets on these hyper palatable things that are literally made to be addicting, like it's a cocaine company. So now we need to make a pivot into maybe it's these junk foods that we find seed oils in that are the problem. We know places like McDonald's are unhealthy and they use a lot of seed oils in everything. We know fried chicken places, holy fucking shit, that oil just goes over and over and over and creates even bigger health risks. So when you reheat a bunch of oil, it starts to oxidize. And this is where it can become very, very dangerous, especially seed oils when they're oxidized. They create something called a free radical, and like I said with antioxidants earlier, they fight against each other. Too many free radicals, it's going to have this kind of plethora of general health issues and concerns, which means it is very, very bad for you, and it's not really necessary. If these places just replace their fryer oil more often, we wouldn't have as many of these issues from their places, but that profitability on people comes more into play, especially when you get into those fast food places where it's really everything is just like an Excel spreadsheet. So that is another very, very big issue that you must acknowledge. There is a difference between how fast food places and kind of those quicker restaurants do it compared to home cooks and high-end restaurants. So there is that quality. Quality is another thing very interesting about seed oils. If they're processed using very high heats, oxidation becomes a concern. But if they're cold pressed, it's no longer much of a concern. And if you use that in baking, salad dressings, who cares? So what you really need to take away from this is that it is the things seed oils are in bad processes like deep frying that are actually the fucking problem. And when you see people cut those out, they start to lose weight and lose a lot of those risks because they cut out all that shitty ass food that was causing them all those issues. And many people like to just credit cutting seed oils to that when really what you did was you started eating like a good, healthy person. And most of those people also started exercising, making a big push to change their life. Exercise is going to give you a lot of benefits, and is why you should really subscribe to this channel so you can learn the benefits of exercise. And to kind of add on to this, a lot of people like to make these movements that are anti-seed oil because it encourages people to make these large dietary changes that cut out all these bad foods, which is the saving grace of this. I will say cutting seed oils is never something you should say, don't do that, too strict. The effect you're going to get from cutting seed oils is that you're going to feel a lot better because your diet is a lot better because you're not giving yourself those shitty options that are so addicting and so easy to go to. So as a concept to get rid of these bad foods and kind of make yourself a healthier person, it works and it's better than the alternative. So I recommend you do it. But once you're in kind of a healthy state, you're exercising, if you have something with canola oil in it every now and again, it's not going to kill you. And something else you need to remember from the start of the video is those omega-3s. So to conclude our big takeaway, if you eat more omega-3s, you're going to have more room to eat omega-6s and keep everything within a healthy, optimal range. So cleaning up your diet and adding omega-3s is going to give you the wiggle room to kind of have it every now and again and have zero concerns about anything. The movement in general is just too black and white, and you're not letting people understand their bodies, which is a problem I have with it. But the effect it has is actually generally good because you are encouraging restaurants to start thinking about people over profit, along with you are just having people lose weight and move more, which is so much better for the general population. If you want to understand the dramatized issue the exact way I do it and keep everything in an open frame, click on the link to get the document below because it's going to make everything super easy to see, and you're going to see where I'm getting my information from so you can understand that it's not bullshit. Because like most people on the internet, you don't just want to be someone that listens, and doesn't actually look to see how people got the information. And of course, subscribe for more content like this because you are being lied to by so many influencers and put in these machines, and you just need to understand your body and understand logic and reasoning, and you can have a great, healthy life.